Monday morning, Crown Regency Hotel welcomed the new day with the scent of luxury perfume, the click of high heels gliding across the marble lobby and sunlight reflecting off every meticulously polished glass wall. In a hidden corner where no one paused to look, Ariana Brooks, 27, knelt with the mop, diligently removing every remaining dust from the marble edges. From afar, she resembled a silent part of the scenery, a quiet figure in a light grey uniform, her name tag askew under the crystal chandelier's glow. No one knew she held an honours degree in linguistics. No one cared that she was fluent in 6 languages and once dreamed of working in international diplomacy. They only knew her as Ariana, the girl who mops the ground floor lobby. Suddenly, her phone vibrated in her pocket. Ariana was momentarily alarmed. Company policy strictly prohibited phone use during work hours, especially in the main lobby, a rule enforced by manager Sandra Miller. But it was a call from Amsterdam, the call she had been waiting for over 3 years. She quickly stepped behind a marble column, her hand trembling as she slid to answer. Ariana speaking. On the other end, a gentle voice spoke in precise Dutch, the voice of a professor from the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. And Ariana almost instinctively responded in the language that once was her passion, the one that kept her up nights, perfecting its intonation. The conversation shifted from greetings to academic terminology. Words flowed smoothly and confidently as if she were born for this. Unbeknownst to her, just a few steps away, David Langston, a 45-year-old billionaire and owner of the hotel chain, had entered the lobby with a group of high-level guests. He paused. He heard Dutch being spoken amidst the New York ambiance. He looked toward the marble column and saw a cleaning staff member speaking a European language like a native. His eyes narrowed slightly, but he said nothing. Behind the column, Ariana ended the call with a quick apology in Dutch. She hadn't even exhaled in relief when a familiar, sharp voice cut through Brooks' office immediately. The call lasted less than 3 minutes, but it had just opened and simultaneously closed a door. Ariana stood up, took a deep breath, and adjusted her name tag. No one knew she had just done something the entire hotel had never witnessed. Reclaimed her value. The path to the manager's office lay deep in the basement, a narrow, damp, cold corridor contrasting with the hotel's opulent lobby. Ariana strolled each step heavy as stone. Every gaze she met along the way held something peculiar, a hint of curiosity, a touch of pity, and poorly concealed schadenfreude. She was the only black woman in the cleaning department, and the only one with a college degree. However, to manager Sandra Miller, that meant nothing unless she knew how to stay silent and do her job. The office door closed behind her, and the reprimand began before Ariana could sit down. No phone use during work hours. You know that better than anyone. And what language were you speaking? French? Dutch? Ariana replied softly, almost reflexively. A second later, she wished she hadn't spoken. Manager Miller squinted, the kind of squint someone makes when they've found a reason to convict without trial. I don't care what language it was. I saw a cleaning staff member neglecting her duties, tarnishing the hotel's image right before Mr. Langston. Without waiting for further explanation, Miller imposed a punishment, reassigning Ariana to clean the conference restroom area for 3 months, a dirtier, more demanding shift, and never during daytime hours. This was how they punished those who forgot their place. Ariana didn't protest. She was used to it. She had submitted countless internal transfer applications, For 6 years, from reception to administration to customer relations. All were rejected, no explanations, no responses. We'll consider it. Then silence. That evening, she returned to the cramped apartment she shared with 2 nurses. In the 20-square-meter room with peeling walls, her honors degree from Georgetown University was carefully placed beside international certificates, seemingly mocking her. 6 years, working like a shadow, submitting unread applications, attending interviews where the interviewer's eyes focused more on her skin color than her abilities. They said, "You're not a cultural fit." They said, "We're looking for a different profile." Ariana once had hope. Then hope turned into endurance, and today it became a bitter silence. She looked at her phone. The call from Amsterdam still lingered in the call history. A kind voice, an academic exchange, a small ray of light in the suffocating basement. She didn't know it was the beginning of an upheaval. The next day, Ariana arrived earlier than usual, not out of expectation, but out of principle. Despite being mistreated, she continued to work with professionalism beyond reproach. But instead of being summoned to the conference restroom area as previously informed, her name echoed from the front desk. "Ariana Brooks, Human Resources wants to see you immediately." The HR department was on the 45th floor, where no cleaning staff had ever set foot in. Ariana stepped into the elevator, silently standing among suit-clad individuals discussing million-dollar contracts as if she didn't exist. The elevator doors opened. A slender woman with neatly cut gray hair greeted her by her full name. "Ms. Brooks, please have a seat. Mr. Langston would like to meet with you." Ariana was stunned. Not a warning, not an investigation. An invitation. David Langston's office was nearly the size of her entire apartment. He wasn't seated behind his desk, but stood by the window, silently gazing at the city. "You're Dutch yesterday. No one can teach that kind of pronunciation without a genuine foundation." He turned around, holding the résumé she had previously submitted internally. "Georgetown, honors degree in linguistics, 6 languages, 2 Asian languages, and you've been cleaning my hotel's lobby for 6 years." Ariana didn't know what to say, but Langston had already made his decision. A major trade conference with Dutch and Chinese partners begins this afternoon. I need someone who understands both cultures and speaks both languages like a native. I don't need impressive degrees. I need real effectiveness. She chuckled bitterly. "You want me to clean their rooms, don't you?" Langston laughed, but his eyes bore no mockery. "No. I want you to be the interim international relations coordinator for this conference. Starting at 2 p.m., salary $5,000 a week." Ariana felt as if she had been pulled out of her own body. 6 years of being ignored, suddenly someone wasn't here. Just listening, but believing. "Why me? Because I heard you speak Dutch like a native. Because your resume is something I should be seen years ago. And because I suspect something is deeply wrong within this company." Langston didn't need to say more. She understood, and she nodded for the first time in years, not out of submission, but out of alignment. An hour later, Ariana stepped into the elevator on the 45th floor. A new employee badge with full access to the hotel's global system was pinned to her chest. And just outside the elevator, she ran into manager Sandra Miller. "Brooks, what are you doing here? Where's your uniform?" Ariana smiled politely, keeping her tone professional. "Working, per Mr. Langston's direct request." "Excuse me, interim international relations coordinator." Miller froze. Her face went pale. Ariana calmly walked past her, leaving behind a final line like the closing move in a game flipped on its head. Georgetown degree. 6 languages. My file's been sitting in HR for 6 years. Maybe it was just forgotten. The VIP conference room was elegantly minimalist, with Dutch name cards neatly arranged beside Chinese printed invitations. Ariana entered with her new name badge, dressed professionally, carrying a tablet directly synced to the hotel's internal systems. She was no longer the girl who mopped floors. Now she passed those who had once looked past her with the poise of a professional. She received greetings, nods of acknowledgement, and began her work. But even on the first morning of preparations, she noticed something odd. A 40-page briefing booklet for the Chinese delegation included phrases that felt off, very off. She read each sentence, each character carefully. One line in the partner description had been translated as, "We demand complete obedience from your enterprise." Ariana nearly jumped to her feet. In Chinese business culture, confusing collaboration with obedience was an unforgivable error, both rude and deeply insulting. She reviewed the document closely. These mistakes weren't from machine translation. They were made by someone posing as a professional without real expertise. Ariana stayed up all night correcting the entire document. The next morning, she presented the revised version directly to Mr. Langston. The previous translation uses authoritarian phrasing, which could cause our partners to walk away feeling disrespected. "Who approved that original version?" Langston asked, frowning. "Paul Whitman, head of operations." The service provider was a translation company founded by his niece, Ashley Whitman. Langston fell silent for a few seconds, then nodded. "You are sure I'm not just sure I have proof?" Ariana opened her tablet, showing him a series of emails and payment invoices. Repeated translation errors used across multiple conferences. Service rates 3 times the industry average. No formal professional certifications held by Ashley. Langston sat upright. His voice dropped. "You are the first person to call this out. I am not the first. I am just the first who couldn't stay silent anymore." A few days later, Ariana met Ella Thompson, the new recruitment officer who had quietly reviewed her file upon starting the job. Ella invited her for coffee right on the HR floor and whispered, "I read your file 3 months ago. I couldn't understand why you were in the cleaning department. I don't understand either. But now I'm finding out. I have access to the list of internally rejected applications. Around 128 were turned down for not fitting company culture, and over 90% of them were either people of color or immigrants." Ariana paused. The anger didn't explode. It seeped in like acid. "Ella, can we prove this? If you help me access contract data, I'll dig into the HR logs. And once we piece it all together," she didn't need to finish. Ariana nodded. The silent investigation began. A woman once relegated to scrubbing restroom floors was now peeling back layers of concealment, exposing a network of discrimination and corruption that had festered for years in the very place where she had once been made invisible. She was no longer fighting just for justice for herself. She was reclaiming the voices of hundreds of others. 3 days passed like a whirlwind. Ariana moved non-stop between meetings, interpretation sessions, and negotiations. She spoke Dutch like the wind and Mandarin like water. The delegates didn't just respect her. They relied on her to bridge cultural divides that no translation software could ever hope to cross. But the real game was happening behind the scenes. Through scattered conversations, internal archives, and the accounting system, Ariana and Ella pieced together a complete map. Mistranslations were repeatedly used, even after receiving negative feedback. Every translation contract had been awarded to a company run by Paul Whitman's niece, Ashley Whitman. Talented employees, especially people of color or immigrants, were consistently denied internal transfers under the vague reason of being a poor cultural fit. That night, Ariana didn't go home. She stayed in the office, opened voice recordings, took screenshots, and saved all the evidence to a private backup. This time, she wouldn't be dismissed with a shrug or a cold glance. The next morning, 8:30 a.m., she walked into the CEO's office unannounced. "Mr. Langston, I need you to see this, right now." He looked up from a stack of documents, slightly surprised, but when he saw Ariana's expression, he nodded. She placed her tablet on the desk. On the screen, payment invoices are 3 times the standard market rate. Email approving the contract with Ashley Whitman's company, signed directly by Paul. Audio file Don T. waste time sending applications from people like her. No matter how good-looking or talented, they were not a fit for this place. Langston sat still. "How much more do you need before you call this proof?" Ariana asked, her voice calm. "I don't need anything else," he replied, face cold as steel. "Thank you." Just then the door opened. Paul Whitman, who had rejected Ariana's application 12 times, walked in with a stiff, insincere smile. "Richard, the Dutch team is ready to sign." But they had a few questions about some phrasing in the translation. "I think Johnson may have misinterpreted something." Langston turned, voice low and decisive. "Paul, we need to talk. Right now." No one spoke for a few seconds. The CEO slowly shut the door, then turned around, eyes locking onto Paul S., with the look of someone betrayed by his right hand. "I've just reviewed 3 years of financial statements. 50,000 spent on flawed translations, putting multi-million-dollar international deals at risk, while someone with actual qualifications was cleaning restrooms. I didn't know who she was. The woman you referred to as her has an honors degree from Georgetown, speaks 6 languages, and just saved this conference from diplomatic disaster." Paul stood frozen. Ariana quietly added another printed email to the desk. "I also verified with Peking University. They've never issued any certificate to Ashley Whitman." Paul turned to her, face burning red, and blurted out the last sentence. He should have ever said, "Who the hell do you think you are, meddling in grown-up matters? You are just a mop girl who thinks she's smart." Ariana's expression didn't change. She replied calmly, "Dr. Ariana Brooks, applied linguistics, 6 published international papers, and the woman you used to call mop girl is the one who just brought light to a system you tried to keep in the dark." Langston nodded. "Paul, I've called an emergency meeting with the executive board in 30 minutes. I expect your resignation letter on my desk before I walk into that room." That morning, all directors, managers, and international partners were summoned to the executive conference room on the 50th floor. Langston stepped onto the stage. Beside him stood Ariana, not as a quiet employee, but as the voice of an entire generation undervalued because of their skin color or social status. "We have uncovered a network of bias and fraud that has quietly blocked deserving people from advancing. A system that punished competence for being different and assumed no one would ever notice." Behind him, the screen displayed multiple charts, correlation between race and rejected applications. List of employees eliminated without clear reasons. Overpriced translation contracts with substandard quality. The woman some of you once knew as the lobby cleaner is the person who discovered and prevented serious damage to this hotel. As of today, Ariana Brooks will serve as our Director of Global Multilingual Communications." The room erupted. Some clapped half-heartedly. But in the back rows, the housekeepers, maintenance staff, and janitors wept and applauded like never before. Someone like them stepped onto the stage today not through luck, but because she deserved it. The next morning, Ariana stepped into her new office on the 32nd floor, gazing out the wide glass window at the New York skyline. Her new badge gleamed, reading Dr. Ariana Brooks, Vice President of International Relations and Diversity. Outside her door, a laser-engraved wooden nameplate, VP Diversity and Global Relations. Her first act in the new role, initiating a full review of Crown Regency's human resources system. Not for revenge, but to liberate those who, like her, had been buried. 1 week later, in the executive boardroom, Ariana presented the first report from the Invisible Talent Program, an initiative she had proposed. The program was designed to identify employees with exceptional skills who had been kept in lower-level positions due to bias. In just 6 months of pilot testing, she said we identified 147 employees whose abilities far exceed their current roles. Of those, 83% are people of color, immigrants, or from minority communities. Behind her charts illuminated the screen, international customer service satisfaction rose by 42%. Translation service costs dropped by 78%. Employee retention increased by 31%. All of those improvements, she emphasized, didn't come from hiring new people, but from giving opportunities to those who had always been labeled unqualified because of how they look, speak, or where they come from. Mr. Langston nodded, his face stern, but his eyes betrayed pride. He had set the condition Ariana would only accept the position if she had full authority to reform the HR system toward fairness. And she had honored no vengeance, blame, or drama, just action. At a mid-tier hotel in Fresno, California, Sandra Miller, the woman who once punished Ariana for speaking a foreign language while mopping, was now managing the hotel's laundry unit, a small manager in a small hotel in a small office without windows. She looked at the shift roster daily and recalled the days she walked past Ariana without a nod. Now that same name was appearing in every internal bulletin. And Paul Whitman, no luxury hotel would hire him after the scandal involving fraud and discrimination. His accounts were frozen. His name appeared in industry journals under headlines like "The Collapse of an Old System." Rumor had it that he was now working as a night shift manager at a roadside motel in Arizona. No more million-dollar meetings. No more influence, only a name struck from every hiring list in the industry. As for Ashley, the niece, who took tens of thousands of dollars for mistranslations, was required to return all the illicit payments, enroll in a professional ethics course, and start learning Mandarin from scratch. Ironically, that course was funded by the Langston Brooks Comprehensive Language Education Fund, a new initiative by Ariana and CEO Langston created for hotel employees and their children who dream of studying languages but lack the means. Ashley was its first student. At headquarters, Ariana expanded the Invisible Talent Program. Every employee nominated for promotion would receive an internal mentor responsible for coaching and shielding them from bias. Managers with past discrimination complaints would be temporarily suspended and required to undergo retraining. An independent review board would re-examine every rejected application from the past 5 years to ensure justice was restored. Ariana stepped into her office and laid out a new announcement. The first full-ride scholarship was awarded to the daughter of Mary, a former cleaning team colleague who had quietly left her lunch for Ariana during unpaid overtime shifts. Ariana smiled. Today, a dream is no longer a luxury. 6 months after that fateful day, Ariana stood in Crown Regency's largest auditorium. Regional directors, department heads, and employees around the country sat silently listening. On the screen behind her was the title Invisible Talent Program Phase 1 Summary. Ariana brought no prepared speech. She didn't need one. Her voice rang clear and steady, though there was a catch in her throat. Near the end, I want to share something personal, something that has never appeared in any report. The entire room was silent. When I was a child, my mother worked in a hotel much like this one. She had a college degree, but no one ever asked. She cleaned rooms, made beds, took out trash as if her knowledge held no worth. She paused for a moment. Many in the audience lifted their heads. Their eyes no longer held the gaze of a boss toward an employee, but were quiet and understanding person to person. My mother used to say to me, "Ariana, they may not see you, but that doesn't mean you don't exist. Never define yourself by how others look at you." Her voice cracked. She passed away before I could show her that I'd been seen, that her degree, her dreams weren't in vain. Today I am standing here, not because I am better than anyone else, but because someone finally chose to listen, and I decided not to stay silent. She turned to the screen, which displayed hundreds of photos of employees who had been promoted through the program. Justice isn't just about firing the wrong person. Justice is when the right person walks into where they should have been from the start. And when those doors open, they should never be shut again. After her speech, the entire hall rose to its feet in applause. Not the kind of applause for a successful presentation, but for change, for hope, for something finally undeniably right. Ariana stepped off the stage and turned into the hallway leading back to her office. On her desk was an envelope. She opened it. Inside was a postcard from Amsterdam with a handwritten note. "We've been following your journey. If you are willing, we invite you to become a visiting professor of applied linguistics, Prof. Van Houten, Amsterdam University." Ariana let out a soft laugh. The circle had closed from a Dutch phone call to an invitation to inspire others. She looked out the window. The city shimmered in light. The blazer she wore had an inner pocket. Inside it was a small voice recorder that had captured every threat, every slur Whitman had uttered while trying to cover up his misconduct. She had never needed to use it. Ariana's justice didn't come from retaliation, but from rebuilding a system so that no one else would have to endure what she had. The following week, Ariana officially launched the Silent Talent Scholarship Fund, dedicated to the children of hotel staff. The first recipient was the daughter of Mary, her former teammate, the woman who used to leave extra food for Ariana during unpaid late shifts. The girl's dream was to study hospitality management, and now that dream had begun. Talent has no skin color. Opportunity shouldn't depend on a name. And justice doesn't stop at punishing the bad. It means paving the way for all those who were once forced to be silent. Ariana's story may have ended in leadership, but in truth it was only the beginning. Because when someone who was once overlooked becomes the one who opens doors, every old limit must be rewritten.